Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
I'm ready to watch some football this weekend. How about you?
I am ready to watch some football this weekend. And the thing is, now we know that we only have a certain number of weekends left to watch football, which means we need to take them all very seriously and approach them with great um, gratitude and respect and just enjoy the heck out of them, not move from the butt grooves on the couch for that entire, we got a 10-15 game of BYU and I believe Troy, so that'll go until 1:30. I love it. And I'm looking forward to it. We've got like what, 4 weeks before we can't do this anymore. So let's make the most of it. That's what I say.
Yeah, I am trying to cram a full season of just couch football watching into the next 4 weeks because then we're back into running around and being at games or being on the road or whatever it is. And then you can't really sit down and have that full like 12 to 14 hours of college football viewing. So yeah, last weekend I was up at like 12:30, 1 in the morning watching UTEP and Abilene Christian. So that's that felt like what addicts refer to as a rock bottom moment or a like a cry for help moment. But yeah, that was definitely you know what? It was a pretty entertaining game. I enjoyed it. It wasn't a good game, but it was an entertaining game, so I enjoyed it.
And this is after an entire day of watching basically ACC football and Big 12 football. So it's not like you're rewarding yourself at the end with something like that. It's just like, yeah, just give me more of the same. It's like after eating nothing but crappy pizza all day, you're like, yeah, I'll just fire up a microwave pizza and we'll just, a 99-cent Tony's and just finish the day off in perfect fashion. And
After watching the Louisville defense, the drop to UTEP and Abilene
eh,
Christian was actually not. It's pretty much a lateral move.
yeah, negligible at best. So college football is here, and I'm looking forward to it. Tom, I did have a concern while we were recording Morning Scoop yesterday. No, I mean this morning.
Yeah, when we got up at 3 a.m. to record this morning's morning scoop. Yes, go on.
That was dropped at like 10 p.m. last night or whatever. Talking about how actually may have been, I don't know, the TV stuff. Fox games are long as it is.
Hmm.
What happens now when they have less inventory from the Big Ten, but are trying to get as much money as possible? Are we talking like 4-hour games being the norm? Commercial after every punt, commercial after the punt return, commercial after the kick return. I'm like, I don't complain about the length of college football games because it's college football and I love it and it's my favorite thing. But you start getting into when it's all of these commercials, and now that we're going to be watching it for a month, yeah, I might start to get annoyed by, and even though it's not the Big Ten yet, like if we're talking 4-hour Big Ten games, just to I guess add the increase the ad revenue, uh, kind of concerns me as a viewer a little bit. Am I off base there? Do you think?
I think you just got to get that remote flipping finger loosened up and just. I'm sure they are going to try and cram every single commercial they possibly can because I mean you've got your TV inventory, just your the number of Big Ten games available to Fox this year, and all of the other networks is down. So they have to make that up somewhere, and they're going to make it up with added commercials, more commercials. Um, hope you're ready to watch some political commercials because I have a feeling, friends, you're going to find out about some political candidates in the next whatever 6 weeks or however long it is until that nonsense is over. So yeah, you will. I mean, if you actually just sit down and watch and do not flip channels, you will probably hear "I approve this message" about 5,000 times between now and election day. So my advice to you is to, when your game goes to commercial, go find another game. There's always another game on somewhere. And you know what? Even if it's, I mean, UConn's not playing this year, but if it's a UConn UMass game, like,
Oh,
you know what? That's fine. That beats the black and white slow motion. You won't believe what this guy who's running for office did in 1972. And you know what? I would rather watch Randy Edsall earn $300 for a punt landing inside the 20 than than watch another political commercial.
I
So
I might disagree there. I I'll go look for a mesothelioma commercial or something.
if you
Anything.
you can split the middle and split the difference and try and find a Tommy Tuberville political commercial, and then you get a little from both of the worlds. He's running for the Senate in Alabama, in case you didn't know that. And let's be honest, why would you know that?
Right,
But
yeah.
yes, Tommy Tuberville is running for the Senate in Alabama.
Better than when he was at Cincinnati and doing something for Ohio, I guess. Tom, let's talk about our show, if that's okay. Let's get the show started,
Oh,
as it were.
I guess. Well, while we're here, we might as well. While we're here recording a show, we might as well record a show. I mean, I guess.
So basically today's show, we won't talk to any players or coaches until Friday. So we wanted to have our normal Thursday show because we are all creatures of habit. And so this show is going to be, we'll talk about a couple of things that happened, and then we've got some listener questions that we'll get to. But first time, let's talk about the black stripes that have been removed this past week. We already know about Trey Sermon, which was no surprise way back when, the first guy to have his black stripe removed. And when Ryan Day was talking about it on his radio show, he mentioned that Ryan Stamper, director of player development, was like, "Hey, is it time to get these stripes removed?" And Ryan's like, "Yeah, we got a season now, don't we?" So they decided that let's start doing that, because I was kind of surprised that it happened before pads went on, because that's usually when you can really start seeing something from a player. But Trey Sermon, no surprise, was the first. But I want to mainly focus on the freshmen, of which there have now been 3. And I don't know that any of these 3 are all that shocking. I'm sure you weren't shocked when the first video comes out and it's Jackson Smith and Jigba. The second video comes out and it's Court Williams. And then maybe the following practice, the morning after, it was G. Scott Jr. And I'm sure if we had a tally board of, our predictions, those 3 would be near the top. And so you see that and you're like, that would make sense. That would make sense. That would make sense. The validation, Tom, of seeing stuff happen like that from stuff that we saw and we took note of. We're like, oh, make mental note of how good these guys are. Although I will say it's not hard to notice how good they were, at least in terms of the receivers, when they're catching everything and they're making plays. It's not like I'm the only person seeing that.
Yes, what savvy football scouts you are to have noticed these wide receivers who are catching a lot of footballs against the defenders and making very athletic plays. Yes, we are definitely the Bill Walshes of this generation for sure. Yeah, this is normally, I feel like you always get there's someone in that first week that's kind of like, oh, that's an interesting person to have lost his stripe this early. This year it's just like, yup, yup, yup. I mean, I don't want to spoil anything. Julian Fleming probably coming soon. I mean, that's within the next 3, Julian Fleming's probably losing his pretty quickly. Yeah, these are all the guys that we saw and went, oh, that guy looks good. And all the guys that when you talk to the players, talk to the coaches, they're the guys that are getting talked up. When you talk to people, kind of behind the scenes, they're the guys that are getting talked up. Like, yep, okay. You know how we've been telling you the freshman wide receiver class is good for quite a while? Like, yep, here it goes. That's what that looks like. So, yeah, this is. I think there's a decent possibility that 2 to 3 of those true freshmen are in that 6 wide receiver rotation relatively early this year. That is, I mean, given the fact that A, they're true freshmen, B, there are some upperclassmen that could be in that rotation as well. They're not, it's not just a vacuum. And C, you didn't get much of a spring, you didn't get much of a summer. It's been this weird, disjointed year. The fact that I think you could have 2 to 3 of those true freshmen in that rotation pretty early is a pretty good indication of just how high that talent level really is.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like it will be Jackson Smith and Jigba at the 2 at the slot, Julian Fleming the 2 at the Z, and then G. Scott the 2 at the X. And like I said, maybe not immediately, but I kind of view this as, like they talk about with fast receivers, if he's even, he's leaving. If the freshmen are even in, say, week 1 or week 2 with, be it Jalen Harris or Elijah Gardner or Cameron Babb, because that's really the only 3. DeMario McCall, they're going to have their things that they do with them. But if those 3 freshmen are even with those 3 veterans, it's going to be hard to keep them back from going past them in November and beyond. And as we've seen with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, it wasn't necessarily September and October when they were really doing their things. It was, mid-October, November, the second half of the season when they became contributors and looked like that's when they really got into the rotation and did some things. And I guess I would be surprised at this point if two of them aren't there in the two deep initially for game one. And then I'd be very surprised if it's not all three by the end of the season, because these guys are just different. And then you find ways to use the Mookie Cooper mismatches, just like Brian Day talking about DeMario McCall. They still want to run him. They still want to throw it to him out of the slot. We'll see how that goes, because that's been the story of his career. But yeah, it's going to be really hard to hold those freshmen off at receiver. And I just wish they had somebody to throw the ball to them.
And an offensive line to protect
whoever
whoever that hypothetical quarterback was, and maybe running backs to provide some sort of a decoy, and tight ends. Okay, that's too much. Okay,
enough of this fantasy. Tom, before we get to some listener questions, I got an email from I get emails from sports books because I'm a huge gambler.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not. I don't know why I get all of these emails. I think it's probably because of the Football Writers Association. Maybe, I don't know.
See, I'm a member of the Football Writers Association, and they didn't send me anything.
I get signed up I totally don't sign up for stuff, and if I do ever sign up for something, I use my Yahoo address from like college. I mean, my email address still has the number 25 on it from how old I was when I got it. So it's
Unicorn Sparkles 25 at yahoo.com. Yes, I remember. Yes.
Thank you. And so that's my spam email. But I sometimes I get some good stuff, and so what I got today were the odds of the first head coaches in each Power 5 conference to get fired. So we can talk about the Big Ten here, Tom, and I tweeted it out, so you've already seen it. But Lovie Smith, 2-1 at the top. No surprise. Scott Frost, 3-2. I don't buy that. That's just an overreaction. I don't know why. I think that would be dumb money rather than smart money.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh, 5-1.
I saw that, and here's the thing with Jim Harbaugh. What does fired mean? Because Jim Harbaugh, I don't think he's going to be the first coach fired. His contract still runs out after next year. So if they're going to fire Jim Harbaugh, they're just not going to extend Jim Harbaugh, and then Jim Harbaugh is going to leave. So I don't think he's getting fired. So I don't think that's smart money either.
Then right there, Pat Fitzgerald, 5-1 as well. He's not getting fired.
Based on what? Pat Fitzgerald is going to get, dragged out of there in a we're going to go back to Tommy Tuberville, who told boosters the only way he'd leave Auburn was in a pine box, and then he left in I think a jet to go take another job.
They had wood paneling.
It did. I don't see Pat Fitzgerald. I think Pat Fitzgerald feels like a lifer there.
Mm-hmm. I think the only way he gets fired is if he does something that he shouldn't have done, and it's not losing, because that's what you're supposed to do at Northwestern. Tom Allen next to 8-1. I would kind of have him higher just because I don't think there's a lot of guys that should be like I don't believe in the Scott Frost and Jim Harbaugh, Pat Fitzgerald. I don't think they should be higher than Tom Allen. I also don't think Tom Allen is any danger of getting fired right now, which I guess is a good thing for the Big Ten. That we're looking at all of these guys and you're like, well, that guy shouldn't be there. That guy shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Jeff Brom next at 9-1. That might be a sneaky pick, just because what happens if they go 2-10 or 2 and
then they will have played an illegal number of games and he will be fired for cause.
2-9 is not that much different.
Yeah, that's it. 2-7.
2-7.
Yeah, math. How does it work? Numbers.
I will add this.
This is why you should not be a gambler, because I'm not sure you've got a great handle on numbers.
That must be why all of these sports books send me emails. Yes.
Yeah,
I don't. Sir, you're at 22. Hit me.
I was looking at this list and it was like, yeah, I mean, Lovie Smith, I could see getting fired. I don't remember how many years Lovie Smith has on his deal. He had his contract when he signed it, like the buyout was like ludicrous, and that's been a few years. So
Mhm.
I guess he's probably the most likely. But you just go down this list, and I'm like, I don't see that happening. And frankly, I think there's a pretty good chance no one gets fired this year because, as we just talked to Gene Smith about on Thursday or Wednesday, Ohio State's facing right now, it could be up to a $107 million budget deficit. Guess what? Ohio State's not the only athletic department facing a big hole right now. I don't think you're going to see a ton of coaches get fired because athletic departments are not going to be in the mood to pay big buyouts right now. And this is a weird year anyway, and you can kind of hand wave some stuff. And, you know, I think I predicted on one of our bold prediction show earlier in the year that Clay Helton is still the head coach at USC a year from now, which seems extremely bold, except for the fact that I don't think anyone has any money to pay any buyouts, and he still has a pretty big buyout in his contract. So, yeah,
Yeah, and that,
I don't unless someone does something crazy off the field. Um, I don't see a ton of these guys getting fired just for purely wins and losses this year.
and not just the buyout. Then you're going to pay the next coach more. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
pay some stupid search committee hundreds of thousands of dollars because that's apparently the process that you go through. So, yeah, moving down the list, although Paul Chryst at 20-1 is outrageous as well because he's not going anywhere.
Nope.
Mel Tucker 33-1, that goes to your it's a free year for everybody.
Uh-huh.
Because
Yep.
even if they go 0-9, he's not going to
Right.
get fired, I guess. James Franklin and Greg Schiano 50-1 each. It seems odd to see those two schools coaches so secure.
Who are two football programs that have never been in my kitchen? Yes.
So, but this is the first year. You're not going to fire Greg Schiano after paying him what 24 million or over 6 years. Ryan Day at 100-1 probably should be 1,000-1 at this point. I can't imagine. Probably shouldn't even put this out into the air. Like I can't imagine a scenario where Ryan Day gets fired this year.
Yeah. I mean, I again that would involve something off the field. I don't think he's. I don't see Ohio State going 3-6 this year. And if they do, I still think he probably gets another year based on how good the recruiting is. So yeah, I don't think you're going to have any on field reasons to fire him this year. The one name you skipped over is kind of an interesting one. Kirk Ferentz at 12-1.
Mm.
Now, Kirk Ferentz has a contract which Iowa's athletic department. If you can ever get yourself in a negotiation with Iowa's athletic department, you should do it because no matter what you were offering them, they will give you a contract for $12 million a year from now until the heat death of the universe with all of the money guaranteed. Kirk Ferentz, I mean, like, yeah, he's done a very good job at Iowa, and they have been like, yeah, okay, now they're a very consistent like Outback Bowl level team, and sometimes they're a little better than that. And for that, Kirk Ferentz is paid like just $ Texas for like 12 years. Just it's crazy, and it's guaranteed money. The only thing that I think is a little bit of a like, well, maybe is they've had some off-field stuff going on, and they fired their strength and conditioning coach, and there've been some allegations about mistreatment of players and all that kind of stuff. If that spirals, that could turn into something that is a job killer for him. So far, he's been kind of protected from that, and it is focused all the attention and the negative attention has focused on other people, and he has so far avoided that. But that's something that could be worth keeping an eye on.
But even then, it would probably end up like a Mark D'Antonio retiring.
Yeah, probably. I mean, he's gonna get the benefit of it out there because he's just an institution there and is yeah, he probably it probably doesn't end up a firing, but and somehow even if he does retire, they'll end up paying out that whole contract anyway because that is how Iowa rolls. Go Hawks.
The Iowans always pay their debts. Mike Loxley at 14-1. Again, free year. It's too soon to, even though he's a bad coach and he's never going to win, probably still too soon to fire him, especially this year.
And again, he's someone who he has had off-field issues. His first tenure at New Mexico did not go great. It did not go great on the field. It did not go great off the field. But it would probably take something off the field in order to get him fired this year.
Big 12, Tom. And I know there's a lot of coaches going through your mind. Who do you think is at the top of the list as best odds to get fired this year?
Um, I'm going to say it is. all the places that are kind of a little shaky are basically new people. They're not going to fire Gary Patterson. Matt Campbell's fine. I'm going to go with Mike Gundy at the top of the list.
Mike Gundy is 10-1, same as Gary Patterson in the middle of the pack. At 3-2 odds, Tom Herman of Texas.
Oh yeah, that's true. Because and that's a real good one. I I was thinking about all the bad programs and I skipped over the
Yes.
ones that are theoretically good programs. I'm like, well, Lincoln Riley's not getting fired, so skip down the list of ways. Yeah. No, Tom Herman that's a very good one because remember Tom Herman used his freebie. Tom Herman used his get out of jail card last year. He fired both coordinators.
Hmm?
You only get to play that card once, and once you play that card, if things don't go well the next year,
Now it's on you.
now you're now you're out of cards. Now you are the one drawing for. Yes. He's and I think they're going to be okay this year. I think they're going to be good enough that he won't get fired. But yeah, he's on a little bit of a hot seat. That and Texas is a place that will pay the money if they want to get rid of him.
I think. Go ahead.
I don't know who they would look to replace him. That's kind of
Urban.
my next question is like where do you who do you go to replace him? Who's the
Nick
hot
Saban
up
or
and
Ryan
coming?
Day or Dabo Sweeney? That's who you
Yeah,
go and get.
yeah,
This is
exactly.
Texas, Tom.
Nick Saban's going to leverage another extension out of Alabama by just kind of like hinting at Texas a couple times. I don't know who they go to. Who's the next big up and coming mid major coach to get? I mean, like Luke Fickell. Memphis just turned over. This just App State just turned over. I mean, this
It doesn't seem like there's a lot of quality coaches out there because Ryan Day ends up at Ohio State because he's at Ohio State.
mhm,
Lincoln Riley ends up at Oklahoma because he's at Oklahoma.
yeah.
Dabo was an assistant at Clemson
Mhm.
when he got the job. Like, where are all of these up and comers? I guess they're all in group of five, and we don't necessarily know about them yet, or they're getting fired from Iowa State, like Matt Campbell will be.
I don't let Bill Green hear you say that.
And we'll talk about Matt Campbell, I think, probably on our Patreon show later on as we record later to talk about this week's games. There are three coaches nationally who are 100-1 odds of being fired this year. You know Ryan Day.
Mm-hmm.
Can you guess the other two? Let's see if you can guess the other two, Tom.
I'm gonna go with Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban.
I will have to check. Yes, that is correct. So
what are Lincoln Riley's odds of getting fired? Because I would imagine they're pretty close to 100-1.
28-1.
Lincoln Riley?
I guess it's because of
the Lincoln Riley from Oklahoma?
Yes. Well, here's my thing with even with Tom Herman. Like, you would think that if you are Oklahoma or Texas, you should run through that league, especially after seeing them this season. That you should run through that league, and inexplicably, somebody in that league always gets you. And whether it's a 4-5 Iowa State team or whatever Kansas State, and so maybe there's some frustration there, but I would think that's still not a good bet on Lincoln Riley being fired this year.
No, I don't think so.
The first head coach fired.
No, that's I mean, I have a pretty good sense how their year is going to end because all of their years end the exact same way.
Correct.
I don't want to. Okay, just skip ahead 30 seconds if you don't want me to spoil this for you. But Oklahoma's probably going to have a really explosive offense, and their defense is kind of going to be garbage. And everyone's going to talk about how Alex Grinch is actually no, he's good. He's good. He's a genius. And then they'll run through the Big 12, and then they'll get to the playoff, and then they'll get firebombed by someone because they don't have a defense.
Like, oh crap, we forgot our defense.
Okay, hopefully that was only 30 seconds, and I didn't spoil the entire college football season for you. But
so that's that, Tom. Will Muschamp 2-1, Derek Mason 2-1 in the SEC. I could see either of those. Those are pretty good bets. Jeremy Pruitt 3-1 at Tennessee. That's not bad. Let's see. ACC Dino Babers 3-2, Dave Doran 2-1. Blah blah blah. Who cares? Pat Narduzzi 6-1. Manny Diaz 10-1. Mike Norvell. Tom, tell me. 10-1.
I mean,
I'm sorry, I didn't want to make you think.
It's his first year, but he's not having a great first year. And here's the thing: I don't think they can. That's another school where I don't think they can pay another buyout there. I mean, they're still paying Willie Taggart, who they fired very early and probably had a lot of money left on that deal, and
They might
Mike
still be
Norvell.
paying Bobby Bowden.
Yeah, well, and if you're not paying close attention to Florida State football, and why would you be? They have managed to look terrible. They're probably going to get murdered by Miami this weekend because they still don't have an offensive line. Um, Mike Norvell has managed to alienate a bunch of players over off-field social issues, and now Mike Norvell has also contracted COVID. He is, I think, the last I heard, he was the only person in the program to have contracted COVID. So it wasn't like he caught it from a player. So whatever protocols they're all supposed to be following, the head coach is the only one who didn't follow them. Great, good job, good effort, gang.
What kind of and I don't want to, let's not victim blame somebody here, but what kind of leadership does that show? I mean, that's you see that and you're like, that makes complete sense. Like, oh, here I am so not shocked by any of this. Like the I don't want to start throwing him under the bus, but when you're leading a program and you come down with the illness you're trying to keep everybody from, that's like, yelling at a kid for getting a 15-yard penalty and then targeting him, getting thrown out of the game, basically. And that's maybe when Michael Norvell comes back, he can do that as well. Tom, let's go ahead and get to some listener questions here, run through these, and then we'll call it a day. Not that we're trying to get out of here.
Oh, well, I mean, if we were trying to get out of here, we would not have spent, I don't know how long we've been recording, like 25 minutes or so, 30 minutes already. Yeah.
All right, let's get the show started.
Yeah, let's see. All right. Sounds like a plan. These are all from our Ask the Insiders board at BuckeyeScoop.com, which is a great place to ask us questions for us to answer on podcasts or just on the board. First one from OSU Stan. What is your over-under on the number of Big Ten regular season football games played in 2020? Just for perspective, it would be 7 teams times 8 games because you're only taking half of the team. So it would be 56 games would be a complete season.
Although there is the 9th week.
He said regular season.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
It's
right.
Sir.
You're
it
right.
is Champions Week.
You're correct. That's my fault. So 56 games over under with the not relying on the contact tracing that kicks everybody out and the daily, you got the daily testings. 52 and a half.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm a little skewed because right now it's like a third or a quarter of the games in the other conferences are getting canceled, and it's not going to be that high. I mean, I had 50 in my head. Like, you're going to have something at some point. That's basically like half of the teams in the league lose a game at some point, or aren't able to play, and then the other team loses the game too. But yeah, somewhere in that 50, 52. It's not going to be as many as the other leagues because of the way they're doing testing and all of that. It should lead to a lot fewer cases because it's not that a ton of kids are getting it in all these programs right now. It's that some kids are getting it, and then you've got all these other people who are around them all the time, and so then they have to sit out too, and it's like that precautionary additional step, which is costing a lot of teams the ability to play. So if the Big Ten can avoid that, you're going to have some. I might take the over on 52 and a half. I mean, I think I'm sort of talking myself into the fact that it'll happen a few times, but I don't know if it's going to happen a ton, but I am pretty optimistic based on what they have in place that they'll be able to do, something to keep it reasonably safe.
If I go 7.5 for Ohio State, are you taking the over or the under?
See, that's tricky because I think I would go over if it's just Ohio State. Will Ohio State be able to play? But Ohio State is playing some other teams that I have less faith in. And Michigan State is one, and that's pretty late in the season, and so I guess I'll say under that someone like always, I mean, it's like the old Wesley Snipes was at Passenger 57, always bet on black, always bet on stupidity. let's just bank on the fact that the idiots will screw something up at some point. So I guess I'll take the under. Um, but from Ohio State's perspective, I'm sure I would be pretty confident that Ohio State will be ready to play and capable of playing every game. It's just someone else will screw it up at some point.
So if I say over under 7.5, Michigan State or Rutgers, do you have to think too
Under,
hard?
under, under.
All right, I think we've answered that one. That's um, I would be not completely blown away, but pretty surprised if all 56 games get played.
Yeah, it just something's going to go wrong at some point, but there's enough safety measures in place that it shouldn't be too much going wrong at any given
Plus,
time.
the good thing is they've built in a bunch of bye weeks to handle these things.
If only they had the opportunity to 6 weeks ago. Well, unfair for us to second guess them. That's not fair because this is definitely not what we were saying on August 10th. So,
right, if we weren't going to first guess them, we can't second guess them.
yeah, exactly.
And we definitely didn't first guess
them. We definitely did not do no. All right, next one from South Campus. Thoughts on Josh Proctor? Many of us still have nightmares about his performance against Clemson, but have high hopes for him in 2020. Another, did anyone notice that Drew Chrisman had a pretty bad year punting last year? I know many in this board don't expect to punt this year, but any word on what went wrong with him last year? I guess let's start with Josh Proctor. I mean, I think the Jordan Fuller bar is probably a too high of a bar to expect him to clear, but if he's 90% of Jordan Fuller or 85% of Jordan Fuller, that's probably pretty darn good, and that would be plenty for them to get to where they want to get.
Yeah, I like that, because if say he's 85% of Jordan Fuller as the back line of defense, he's probably going to be maybe 15% more of a Malik Hooker than Fuller, in terms of the range and maybe finding some interceptions. So if he's that, then that's plenty. Oh, we'll see. I think it still comes down to there's some discipline issues that we've seen just on the field in terms of tackling and just the fundamental aspect of it. We know that he's been compared to Malik Hooker in the past because of his range and his anticipation. We'll see how that goes. I know a lot of people, like fans, certainly are expecting huge things. I hope they're not expecting too much from him, because I think a lot of people also overlooked how good Jordan Fuller was last year.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how many times we tried to explain how good he was doing and what he did for that defense, and now you see Jordan Fuller, 7th round draft pick, starting free safety for the Rams in the NFL. So if he, like you said, Tom, if he can be 85% of Jordan Fuller and then also add a bit more playmaking, I'd take that right now.
Yeah, I think Ohio State would definitely take that right now, and that's not an unreasonable expectation for him. I mean, I think Jordan Fuller was a criminally underrated player by a lot of Ohio State fans over the years. I mean, that was, and he was one of those people that you waited, it was like him and KJ Hill during the draft. It was like, got to be soon, right? It's got to be soon. Like in the 3rd, 4th round, you're like, all right, should be any time now. Waiting, and then by about round 6, you're like, do you people watch? You're literally, football is your job. Do you watch football? Like, what? And shockingly, KJ Hill and Jordan Fuller turned out to be pretty good pros. How about that? That's crazy. Who could have seen that coming? Proctor, I think is I think if he's 85% of, like you said, 85% of Fuller, and then a little bit of Malik Hooker on top of that, like that, that'll find that'll balance it out just fine. Drew Chrisman last year, I mean, we talked about him. It was just he had like this magic foot the year before, and then last year it was just kind of like, yeah, it was just okay. It wasn't incredible. Had a lot of several that bounced into the end zone, and some of that is probably on the fact that Terry McLaurin's not there to down the ball in the end zone. I mean, there's a bunch of this is the equivalent of the pitcher who has a bad year because all of a sudden his fielders aren't as good. Like there's other elements to it there, but he definitely it did not. You didn't see a lot of those that he kicked and dropped and they just like spun sideways right out of bounds at the 1
Right.
yard line, like you saw the year before. And
He didn't need
that may
Terry
be a function.
McLaurin. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
That may be a function of just, that's not reasonable to expect a guy to be able to do that all the time. That was noteworthy in 2018 because it was like, holy crap, this guy's magic. And sometimes you can't be magic forever, but we never got an answer on an injury or anything like that. So, I mean, I would expect him to be solid again this year.
Yeah, I think losing Terry McLaurin hurt, but like you said, there were times where Terry never touched the ball, and the ball was getting down inside the 5 yard line. Of course, my theory was that he struggled because he got engaged.
Mm.
You informed me that that's probably not a great thing to say, and so
And here
then,
you go saying it again.
no, but it was noticeable just because of how good he was in 2018, and so we'll see if they can get back to that. I'm like with everybody, they're going to be so fired up to have this season. You would expect everybody to be at their best. And Tom, as we've seen, not that punters and place kickers are the same. We've seen some outstanding college kicking so far this season, so I would expect punting to be just as good. I mean, I'm seeing kickers spray the ball everywhere, and it's just remarkable.
The one consistent performance in 2020, college kickers. They have their own hashtag for a reason. Hashtag college kickers. Yeah, and I mean, punters. I mean, there are positions I think you're going to see drop offs because there are spots that guys can't necessarily work on stuff because of COVID and haven't been able to do stuff individually. All Drew Chrisman needs is a football and some open grass to go work on his punting. So you would think punting would be something that would carry over reasonably well this year, but
Do you think, Tom, that he's gotten less Australian the further he gets from Cameron Johnston? Is that what has maybe, when Cameron Johnston is around you, you become
mm-hmm.
you become imbued with these Australian powers. They've been separated now for a while and been gone for quite a bit of time. So I think he's losing that Australianness.
but he's also going to be picking up Australianness as Jesse Mirko comes into the program. I
Hmm.
mean, I know he's already signed. I don't know that he's not on the roster for this year, but they he may sort of have hit the low point of his Australian proximity and now be slowly ramping back up with the arrival of Jesse Mirko at some point. So maybe that's a reason to hope for a turnaround.
You know how like players watch game day movies to psych themselves up or listen to game. What if like he watches Crocodile Dundee to psych himself up or listens to Men at Work, and
Mm-hmm.
that will then bring back that Australianness to his game. You know what? When we talk to him this during camp at some point, why don't you bring that up?
I will. And I will say, I have 4 words for you, sir. Yahoo Serious Film Festival. I'm just saying, think about it. I'm just saying, think about it. Speaking of Yahoo Serious, next one from Edgy for Sure. Expectations of our secondary as a whole. Speaking of transitions.
Well, my expectations. We talked about this recently, and I don't know in terms of what's going on with the second safety. We don't know. We assume it's going to be a 3-man corner rotation. We didn't. No questions about that were asked to Kerry Combs. We just assume that those three, Cameron Brown, Seven Banks, and Sean Wade, will rotate. Marcus Williamson is in the slot. He's there with Ronnie Hickman and Cameron Martinez, the freshman. So there's that. If those three outside corners are rotating, then you can't ask the inside corner, Marcus Williamson, to play all of those snaps. So will he be rotating with, say, the second safety, who would be maybe Marcus Hooker, the quote-unquote maybe strong safety, with Josh Proctor as the free safety? Expectations, I expect them to play well because they are Ohio State defensive backs. Do I expect them to be like 2016 or to be the reason Ohio State's defense is the best in the nation? No. I think they'll be I think the corners will be just fine, like really good. The safeties I'm still not sure about in terms of, like Kerry Combs said, he's not ready to label this BIA yet because he wants to see it. I guess I'm in that same boat. There's plenty of talent, but let's see the production. Let's see the consistency. Let's see the lack of big plays given up by that last line of defense. I once you go through a 2018 once, it's hard to think it's never going to happen again.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a 2018, and I mean the talent is there. I think the scheme's going to be better than it was in 2018, which is going to help a lot. The other thing is there's not a ton of great quarterbacks and wide receivers on the schedule this year. I mean, you go through and it's just like Michigan's lost a ton of their wide receivers. Penn State's lost a ton of their wide receivers. Michigan's got a new starting quarterback. You're not playing Minnesota during the regular season, so you don't have to worry about Rashad Bateman. I mean, there's a bunch of you're not playing Purdue this year, so you don't have the Rondale Moore and David Bell. I mean, there's not a lot of great quarterbacks on the schedule this year. There's not a lot of great wide receiver units on the schedule this year. And the teams that have they've got the one really good wide receiver. Okay, well, Sean Wade will handle that. And then there's not a lot of other and not a lot of teams that have like that Ohio State wide receiver depth where it's like, okay, you've got to cover 3 really good wide receivers on every play, and that's going to be a real challenge. That I think is sort of an underrated portion of this, so where you might not really have a great sense exactly how good the defensive backfield is until you get to the playoff, where, okay, now you're playing Clemson, and they do have a good quarterback, and they do have a good wide receiver unit, or you're playing Alabama, or you're playing Georgia or Oklahoma or whoever it is, and then you're going to kind of find out a little more. But during the regular season, I really honestly don't see huge issues with that defensive backfield. And just based on the way Ohio State develops defensive backs, by the time you get to the playoff, I think you're probably going to have someone else, whether it's Sevyn Banks or Cameron Brown, someone else at that cornerback position who's this is the guy who's going to be the next first-round draft pick out of Ohio State. And, ideally, Josh Proctor has gotten everyone comfortable with the fact that he's the deep guy back there, and Marcus Williamson's, a little more proven in the slot, and everything's a little more ready to go. But yeah, they're going to get to ease into things a little bit this year, I think, with just the opposition. WJ James 12 says a prediction show: offensive, defensive MVP, scoring leaders for each position, OSU's closest regular season game, etc. And we will probably do a prediction show, but we can do an abbreviated predictions
we
thing
can run
here.
Through this real quick. Tom, I'll take offensive MVP first. I'll go Justin Fields. Yeah.
Wait, which position does he play again?
He's a quarterback.
Okay.
He throws the ball.
Okay.
He's basically the free safety of the offense, if you will.
Okay.
He makes the plays, or the middle linebacker, if you will, as they call the quarterback, the middle linebacker of the offense.
Okay, so you're picking Tuff Borland as the defensive MVP then?
No, I'm going to take Pete Werner because it's him or Sean Wade, right?
Yeah, I think I was going to say, Pete Werner, Sean Wade, maybe Zach Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
I am.
Are you spicy enough to go for Zach Harrison right now?
I mean, I'm driving the Zach Harrison bandwagon and have been for a little while, and he is very much. I mean, we've said this before. He is right on that Sean Wade track or Chase Young track statistically. Where his freshman year, you look at the numbers, it's like, yep, those are Chase Young's freshman year numbers, and Chase Young's sophomore year, he had 2 bad ankles and still had 10.5 sacks. So if Zach Harrison is healthy, even in a shortened season, he may be looking at 8-10 sacks this year, and that I think is going to be something that, I mean, you look at the number of teams that are replacing offensive linemen. I mean, Michigan 4 new offensive linemen. I think Penn State's got some turnover on the offensive line. Those are the best offensive lines they're going to face, and then you've got a bunch of Rutgers and Maryland's, and I think Zach Harrison's going to spend some time in the backfield. So, yeah, you know what? Sure, let's do it. Zach Harrison, defensive MVP.
Wow. I will just jump onto that, and I will say Pete Werner pick 6 against Nebraska, just to try to add another spicy prediction. But yours obviously is that would be quite the boon for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Scoring leaders for each position. Let's start at left tackle. Although, did you see the tweet from Ohio State today with DeJuan Jones in the end zone spiking the football? Like if there was a tackle eligible play and we don't
Mm.
get to see that from that practice of DeJuan Jones scoring, I'll be kind of upset. But yeah, go ahead.
I am extremely here for DeJuan Jones lining up as a goal line fullback. Like extremely here for it. That would be. I'm picturing DeJuan Jones vaulting over the line into the end zone. I mean, how would you like to be the middle linebacker trying to meet DeJuan Jones in midair? That doesn't seem like a winning
I
play.
think what would happen is you got DeJuan Jones as the fullback, you got Demario McCall as the tailback. Demario just jumps on DeJuan Jones' back,
Hmm.
and then DeJuan Jones jumps into the end zone.
Now that Robert Landers is gone, I think DeJuan
Yes.
Jones is the guy I want to most see score a touchdown for Ohio State this year.
Scoring leaders, let's just do running and catching, I guess, is how we can do this.
Mhm.
When I'm looking at this, I think Trey Sermon, Master Teague maybe cancel each other out. Does Justin Fields come in and sneaks some vulture touchdowns and leads the team with like 11, while Sermon and Teague have like 10 apiece, something like that? Is that outrageous?
It's not outrageous. I think there's a decent possibility that all of those guys end up in that like 7 to 12 touchdowns range. I think Trey Sermon's probably the starting running back this year, so I will go with Trey Sermon. But yeah, that's one of those things where you could have potentially like 4 running backs with between 5 and 10 touchdowns on the ground, something like that. That would not be surprising at all.
Now, receptions, touchdown receptions, where are you
Garrett Wilson,
there?
dibs.
Okay.
I mean, they do have other good wide receivers as we've discussed, but I'm just going to say Garrett Wilson, dibs.
Yeah, I could see Garrett Wilson having more than one a game by the
Mm-hmm.
end of the season, averaging out more than one a game, like 12, 13 touchdowns without much of a, I don't think that's much of a stretch
No.
to think that he'll be there. So yeah, I'm with you there. What about number two? Like is um, Jameson Williams is going to have some deep touchdowns. That'll be, but Chris Olave, I mean, he had like what, 13, 12 or 13 last year. So
Yeah,
another
Chris
9 or
Olave to
10.
me is the second choice. Yeah, you go
Yeah.
Wilson and then Olave. I think touchdowns over 30 yards. Yes, I will go with Jameson Williams with the most there. But yeah, I think Olave and Wilson are probably your two
Yeah.
choices there.
Closest regular season game, is that Penn State?
It's got to be at Penn State, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that's a road game. That's by far the best team they play on the road. So unless they just sleepwalk against someone stupid like Indiana, it's probably at Penn State.
Yeah. Next.
Next one from Party Paul, who is the second and third best teams currently in the Big Ten?
Well, I guess the second would be Penn State. Are we in agreement on that? And then third is like who is the best team in the West? Is it Wisconsin? Is it Minnesota?
Yeah.
Like I immediately go to Wisconsin just because I give them the benefit of the doubt,
Mm-hmm.
even though Minnesota has kind of been as good as they have been recently.
Yeah.
But I guess until like Minnesota takes over the West completely, I'll go with Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, I will go with Wisconsin until I see Minnesota in Indianapolis. I mean, if as soon as Minnesota beats them and gets to Indianapolis, I will go with Minnesota. But I mean, Minnesota beat them 2 years ago and still didn't make it in Indianapolis. It was Northwestern there instead. So yeah, I'll go with Penn State and Wisconsin, and then I mean, Minnesota's a 3-point favorite over Michigan in Week 1, and it's a game at Minnesota, so that's basically a push. But Michigan and Minnesota are basically tied for fourth. Because you get 3 points for home field, so it's a 3-point favorite on a neutral field would basically be a push or a pick 'em. So yeah, I think Penn State and Wisconsin are two pretty good picks there. And last one from our buddy Mick Walker. If one of you two had to pick one, if you had to pick one of you to sing a theme song for Buckeye Weekly, who would be picking up the mic, and what song would they be singing?
First of all, this clearly indicates that Mick does not listen to the show because we do have a theme song. We have an opening song, and Tom, of course, you would sing it because you have sung it. So yeah, you are the singer of the two of us. You're not the good singer.
No, that is definitely not true. Yeah, I'm definitely not the good singer.
The relatively good singer, but
yeah, I am. I'm not a good karaoke person, but I'm an enthusiastic karaoke person. So I mean that, and really, that's what it's all about. So as far as what song to sing, I mean, I'm partial to Des Moines by 1-800-BAND as far as a theme song. Um, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Lord knows Mick isn't.
Yes.
Um, but I mean, I have some other standards at karaoke night, but I think Des Moines is a good pick.
Do you do that quite a bit on karaoke nights, and people are like, Tom, what the hell is this song?
I tell you that Des Moines all right. We can steal a car and leave
Tonight.
tonight.
That's right. All right, Tom, let's call it a day. Let's thank everybody for listening. We do appreciate that. We hope your weekend of football is full of football and enjoyable. Hopefully there are a bunch of good games. I know it may not be fun watching the early like the first half of the ACC games, but maybe some of those will turn into quality entertainment in the fourth quarter, and hey, maybe overtime, which would be great. So thank you all for listening. Continue to check out BuckeyeScoop.com, where right now, as we always tell you, if you aren't a member yet, it's that time. We're in camp mode. There's going to be information coming out. We'll keep it on the insiders board. We won't just keep it there, but there's going to be a bunch of stuff on the insiders board that you guys will want to be a part of. As we speak right now, Bill Green is having his weekly chat. Um, so that's hundreds of questions and insights and answers, and it's an all day thing where we hang out. And Bill just texted me a little bit ago, hey, ask me, hey, can you answer this one? And just so it's kind of an all hands on deck at times, which is kind of what the board is anyway. We're all there, so check that out. Give it a 1 month try if you want, and I bet you'll keep it. And Tom always has his morning scoop Monday through Friday. Tom, who you got coming up tomorrow?
That's a good question, and I don't want to spoil the surprise, not least because I don't know yet. But yeah, we have just sort of I mean, a lot of times it's just like what has happened today, what's happening tomorrow, and we'll I don't go with the solid, just a normal typical like Monday is for this person, Tuesdays for this person. It's just kind of who has written something interesting most recently that I want to talk to about whatever they've written or news that's coming the following day or something like that. So we've had all of our different Buckeye Scoop staff members on there. We have guests, other beat writers. I've had Matt Conley, who covers Clemson. I've had James Crepia, who covers Oregon. I've had our good buddy Bill Bender from the Sporting News on a few times to kind of do national, sort of a national look when they released the Ohio State Athletics Hall of Fame. I had Aaron Brown, who's one of the people who was inducted. So just kind of who's in the news today, what's the story, and talk to someone about whatever the news of the day is. So that's you can find that on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud. Just search Morning Scoop or Buckeye Scoop. Either one will get you there. And subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating and review.
And the feedback has continued to be fantastic for that. So we thank you guys for that. And we will talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.